Hi, everybody. Welcome back on another episode of VCTV. I really request everybody to put yourself on mute. So before we start the show, VCTV, the Venture Capital TV, is from LaToken, and this is a platform we connect investors with budding entrepreneurs. And also, this is a platform where we guide startups and entrepreneurs on fundraising strategies, on making collaborations, on scaling up as well. And it's also a platform to create knowledge about fundraising, different sectors. We cover different sectors, different topics. Today, we are going to focus on one region, Middle East. It's a huge region. It has maybe 15 or 17 countries. So it's a big region, the other day we spoke about India and Africa. We're going to cover a big region today. And today we have experts in the panel who are going to share their insights on what are the different ways of fundraising, what are different ways of working with startups in the region. Before I introduce my speakers of the panel, let me introduce myself. My name is Sunny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of LaToken, and I've been hosting VCTV since last year. And welcome all of you to VCTV. And this is another interesting topic that we're going to discuss today about investment landscape, the startup landscape in the Middle East. It's a huge country. It's a huge region as well. The Middle East is a big, consists of many countries. So let's just see what we gather from this panel today. So today, I am joined here from somebody from Israel who is very active in that country. So we'd like to start by welcoming him on VCTV. I think this is his first session on VCTV with me. Hi, Samuel. Welcome to VCTV.
Hi, Sonny.
So let's start.
Thank you.
Introduction.
Pleasure to be here. And to give you a few words on Sweetwood. Sweetwood Capital started as a multifamily office, which we still manage. Also, being in Israel, we invested more and more in VC and created Sweetwood Ventures, fund of Israeli VC, investing in primary, secondary, invest in Israel. So very active in what's happening. Happy to enter into more details, but maybe I'll let Gary and Shah also introduce themselves, but thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Samuel, and I'm sure you're going to love this VCTV family soon. Next, I have Gary. Hi, Gary. Welcome and good morning. How are you today?
Hello. I'm great. Great. It's great to be here and great to see some friendly, smiling faces. My name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. Done 17 startups. I'm involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software. It came out of Haifa, Israel, that was brought to the U.S. to Campbell, California. Sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion a little over 2 years ago. And also, I'm the co-founder of Eva.ai, a $1 billion AI HR tech company that I founded with Dr. David Yang in Palo Alto, California. So it's great to be here. I love AI and quantum computing. I'm the CEO, co-founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Santa Clara. And we love the Middle East. We're doing a lot of business all over the world because we believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't. So thanks, and it's great to be here.
Fantastic, Gary. It's always great to have you on VCTV as well. Next, I have Tushar. Hi, Tushar. Long time no see. How are you? And welcome back.
Thank you, Sunny. It's my pleasure to be on the show when you are moderating always. Thank you for welcoming me. Myself, Tushar Kansal from Consultancy Ventures. We are investors and also an investment management firm affiliated with almost 5 global VCs and have relationships with more than 300 global investors. In my previous life, I've been in the private equity practice at Deloitte & Touche, India's largest venture capital arm of Times of India Group, Brand Capital, and headed treasury at the Russian telecom company MTS, where I raised almost $2.5 billion for the company, and was CFO of a logistics company owned by Guggenheim Partners. We interact largely with the global companies and a lot of large focus on Middle East. It is happy to see my friend from Israel, Mr. Samuel, today also on the show, and to be talking about the economies in the Middle East with my Israeli friend and with Sunny and with Gary. Thank you so much, Sunny, once again.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you for that intro. Set. Great. I would just mute. So let's start with Samuel. Samuel, so we would like to know what kind of, it's like obviously opening remarks to start into the show. We're going to go deep into some of the topics after this. So what trends do you see in the region? I mean, you have so many countries in the Middle East, right? Where are these placed in terms of getting for that investment? And where's the startup buzzing mainly, like making a lot of noise and everything? So let's start with you. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Israel it's a very small country. It's a country of 9 million people. Tel Aviv, which is often mentioned, is 420,000 people. So people get to know each other. It's a very small and thriving community, with very exciting for like startups, and like you also have like other places in the country. But like Israel has been interesting because with 9 million people for a long time, we didn't. It's not a market. So how do you create when you're outside market? It becomes obviously the United States. That's where there is the strongest link, and that's why it was a curse and a blessing to be always how to think big from the beginning. I think what is changing in the region now with the Abraham Accord also is all of a sudden you see that like the market has expanded. You see more and more companies being invited. ADIO just opened in Israel. So I think that's good for the Israeli companies. It's going to be very interesting. To understand the structure of the market, it's Israel is very good because it doesn't have a market in everything which is B2B. Sorry, that's why it has been the strongest. Whether it's in cybersecurity, whether it's in big data, AI, smart mobility, the vision, all those are sectors where Israel has shown tremendous growth and very strong expertise. And I think the exchanges we're going to see more and more in the coming years, the investment, like the UAE announced a 10 billion investment into Israel, I think will really be an amazing opportunity in terms of exchange of talent, ideas, companies for the whole region. So really happy to see the development.
I think you should have been in the panel yesterday. You represent, did you say, a multi-family office?
So we have two activities. We started in the beginning as a multi-family office, and we're based in Israel, working with representing a few families. And being here, the family said, why don't you invest in venture capital? You're in Israel, startup nation, makes sense. So we started investing in some startups, like I think a lot of family offices. And then we quickly realized that the best startups were going to the best funds because they were enabling them to scale. So we started investing in the best funds in Israel. And then to access the best funds, we realized it was not as easy as people can think. So it's a $5 million ticket, sometimes the minimum. And then when you build a portfolio, we're coming from a liquid market. I was a fund manager before on equities, so you realize you need diversification, risk management, which means you need to be an LP in 8 funds, which means allocating $20 to $40 million, depending on the initial check, in Israeli VC, which in terms of diversification was not the most optimal sometimes. It was a bit of a big amount for some families. So we decided to create now, 3.5 years ago, a fund of Israeli VC. The idea was how to invest into the market while being able to diversify and maintain still good returns. So if you look at the returns of venture capital, I think it's an interesting class because you have amazing returns, but you have a dispersion of return which is extremely high, which means that if you look at the average or even the median, it's not very attractive as an asset class. Where you really want to be is going to be the top quartile or top decile of investors. And that's where we're investing, to really building partnership with those investors and how to be able to add value to the companies in their portfolio.
So you are, if I understand, you are only active in Israel.
We're active in Israel only. We feel like it's a market that we know, and that's how we be able to source the best deals and the best opportunity to do a really strong due diligence. In the future, as we grow, we'll be happy to look at other regions, but that's where we started and have our expertise.
Thank you so much, Samuel. So Tushar, coming over to you. So we have somebody from the region itself, and he's very active in Israel. So Tushar, obviously I know that you are in India, but you must have invested into startups in the region. So how different they are? I mean, all the trends you see is how different they are from an Indian subcontinent or any other region that you like, Southeast Asia, and what are the trends over there?
So, there are a three-letter word which has dominated the Middle East since eons, and that is oil. So, because the region is addicted to oil, so on the consumer products front and on the consumables front, the region has been importing, most of their products and not manufacturing them within their economies. And so there has been in the sense a mental barrier to investing in the Middle East because people said that there are laws around ownership and prohibitively high minimum capital requirements and stringent ownership restrictions. So a large part of those things, once the oil prices have gone down in recent times, and renewable energy has taken up, a large part of those restrictions are actually now going down, and that is what is making this region very attractive. And just like UAE allows 100% ownership of companies from its SEZ, and also there were regulations introduced around creation of companies within these SEZs, which were much lenient as compared to the other parts in the UAE. So I'm just like, that's just an example. And this region is actually many countries in this region are either known for oil or for trading, but Israel and UAE, they are kind of exceptions because Israel is very big in technology. In fact, a friend of mine was telling me some years back that the most genuine technology companies which you see globally either come from Bangalore, Hyderabad, these are the two cities in India, or from Silicon Valley or from Israel. And only last week, a client of mine, which is a blockchain company based in Israel, they went to UAE and met a investor through me. And it was very exciting to get that meeting going. And things have been quite happening in a very positive direction. And the governments have also become very amenable to develop technology. And recently, Khalifa Sat was a satellite which UAE sent into space. And when these kind of events happen, then the technology starts reaching even the educational institutions, and the aspirations of entrepreneurs starts going up. So that's and these are very exciting times for the Middle East.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tushar, so much for sharing those insights and covering the entire landscape in terms of regulatory policies as well. That's good to know. Next, I have Gary. Gary, over to you. So again, I mean, we have spoken about on VCTV, especially on this episode, on this Asia VCTV. We have spoken about India, we have spoken about Africa, but we haven't spoken much about Middle East. So yeah, what kind of trends do you see, and how are they different from other regions in terms of investment appetite?
Well, I mean, the situation, first of all, when I joined the team at Click Software back in the late 90s, people weren't really talking about Israel as much. And, it's a matter about, remember, intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world. but opportunities aren't. What I'm seeing is really a curation of opportunities and the support within the Middle East of those companies from a governmental perspective, of the kind of legislation that's being proposed, free zones, right, such as in the UAE, to be able to stimulate businesses, preferential visas to be able to help people come in, investments in areas like R&D. Look at what Israel's been able to do, and a lot of it's because of the success in the R&D expenditures. So it's a matter of curating those particular companies. And I don't want to say not an entitlement, but really the government support to be able to help those accelerators and incubators grow. So it's what we're finally seeing is really the trend across the globe, places, all through the Middle East, Egypt, right? The ecosystem's really burgeoning. And the other thing is to remember the digital transformation that we've gone through the last year has really leveled the playing field. And here we are in VCTV again, right? For the 700th time. I don't know.
No, we don't know. Yes, I know we don't know how many times.
But anyhow, this is, look at it right now. We can now communicate in an entirely different way than we have before with StreamYard, which was founded in 2018, Zoom. So we've got the ability to be able to level the playing field. The companies that use it wisely are the ones that are going to win. So in terms of the Middle East, it's a matter of, it's like having a Ferrari in the garage. You got to get the Ferrari out of the garage and put it on a track for people to be able to see it. Israel's done a really good job over the last few years, especially of getting the cars out of the garage. But now that trend's happening, and now there's being, cross-border support. So countries are understanding we need to work together to make this world a better place. Because when it's all said and done, we all face the same kind of problems, right? And it's a matter of solving those problems, whether it's impact issues, climate change, renewable energy, population going from 8 billion to 13 billion at the end of this century. So there's a lot of things, but at the same time, there's incredible brain power that's untapped. One of the things we do at GSD is we go all over the world, through Africa, through the Middle East, to be able to meet with people and curate it, just like I did in Russia. When I went over to Russia in 1992 and lived there 14 years, people were saying, "Oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to go," but that's where the opportunities are. And by the way, half the scientists in Israel are Russian or Ukrainian, right, Samuel?
Yes.
And, I mean, you got incredible talent that came out of, Russia and the Soviet Union has come over and really seeded the opportunity. But now the question is, how do we work together to make the world a better place? We use Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world, just like we did with Click Software, right? And I was on the original team. Came over, people said, "Oh, an Israeli company, why would they be coming to Silicon Valley?" Why? Because it's a port to the rest of the world. Doesn't mean you have to take your whole company there. It just means you have an opportunity to get to a lot of people. It's like fishing. If you want to go fishing, you go to the right pond.
So sorry, Gary, I missed that point. So this was this Israeli startup which wanted to go Silicon Valley. Is that right?
It was called IET. Samuel knows Click Software. It's a pretty famous company. So founded by Moshe Ben Basat. I was hired by Oak Investment Partners, came on board the company as Senior Vice President Marketing Business Development, 1998, late 90s. But it wasn't a trend at the time. There weren't that many Israeli companies that came in. And so I renamed the company Click Software. We came up with a family of products. We got a lot of visibility, got the right kind of advisors and board members involved, cut some deals with companies like SAP, and the rest is history. So it's, the one thing is it's really nurturing and seeding it. And the beauty of, we did an IPO in NASDAQ, but the point is, this is a little company that was founded in 1997. So, and now purchased by Salesforce for $1.35 billion. So it means that there's the opportunities out there. It's a matter of which companies are willing to do it. Again, part of the challenge is having the right network and contacts to be able to pull it off, right? The right kind of VCs, the right kind of investment bankers to be able to make it real. The good news is it can be done. The great news is there's more of an equal opportunity for those companies to come out. So we're really encouraged. We're working throughout the Middle East today, all the way. I mean, literally all parts. So from Egypt to Israel to Dubai, you name it. We're looking for those opportunities. And areas that are really interesting for us are fintech and cybersecurity. But of course, with the supply chain, we talk about it many times. There's still the challenge all over has been the toilet paper challenge. So insights into the supply chain using artificial intelligence. So I'm excited about it. I love it. I love the, like I said, when I first went to Russia, people said, oh, it can't be done. I started the first accelerator in Russia. People said, why would you be doing that? And even the Russians were saying, why do I want to go to Silicon Valley? We took them over to Silicon Valley, introduced them to Guy Kawasaki, Steve Blank, Bob Dorff, people pretty well-known friends. And all of a sudden, it created a trend. We went from like 2 in our entrepreneurs club to the biggest one I had was over 2,000 did it. So it can be done, and we're excited about it.
Thank you, Gary, for sharing those insights and the story as well. That's good to know. I was just wondering, a question for Samuel as well, because even before the pandemic, I think Israel was picking up in terms of blockchain adoption. And besides Israel, I have UAE, Turkey, then I have, and Bahrain, I remember, was picking up in terms of incubating more and more startups. So we can start with Israel because you are very active in that space, in that country yourself. So how has the blockchain sort of landscape evolved since I think it was in 2018-19. Obviously 2020 was a lockdown year for all of us. So, and what other sectors do you focus on primarily?
It's primarily focused on B2B. So, like cybersecurity, as Gary said, is a very active, very strong sector for the market. We also have like AI in terms of like medtech, digital health. Those have been very strong sectors with some amazing companies, whether it's for like hospitals and consumers. We've had like also in big data, we saw some great companies. So you see a very fertile environment, whether then you take this knowledge and you bring it to agri-tech, you can bring it to fintech. It's really a question on how to build. Israel is a deep tech market. I think it's very different from Europe, which Europe is more how to reinvent a business model and how to optimize it. When you look at Israel, it's really you're talking to engineers. It's not people coming out of business school. For most of them, are going to be the one creating those companies. And then, as Gary said, I think people go and have to go to where the end consumer is, which is like in the US. Silicon Valley has been very welcoming. I think with UAE also, like they have amazing programs and the on the vision on how to build, like whether it's a fintech in Bahrain, whether it's going to be in Dubai, like the role of AI, or in cybersecurity, and you already see a lot of companies going there and developing, and some of them will open branches there. So it's going to be an exchange of talent, an exchange of knowledge, and I think the region is going to create amazing opportunities. We might even see more and more B2C companies with the JCC market opening up. But I think I fully agree with what has been said. It's really a question of network. And the network is something, whether it's people you meet with the same field, that's how you know what's happening. It's not being, in front of an Excel or in front of a computer. It's being on the ground, meeting entrepreneurs, knowing what are their needs, knowing where the market is going. When we started this to be really active in venture, we looked at it once again from like a bit more liquid approach, and we're like, okay, what is the database? Where is the market going? And we realized it's very difficult to get accurate information. For the past 5 years, we've been building our own database, which tracks 150 12 fund managers, 1,200 companies today to know exactly what was the valuation, where are we going, which one are the good managers. And you realize you have amazing managers and amazing startups. Sometimes it'll be someone waking up with an amazing idea. So often it's like experienced people or like now serial entrepreneurs. And just for people to realize how active the market is, how amazing performance has been now that we're coming out of COVID. It's since the beginning of the year, we've had 6 unicorns in Israel. Like it's Israeli companies have raised like $2.7 billion. Those are amazing numbers, especially in a post-pandemic world. So we're very optimistic about what's happening, and I think UAE and Israel have been really the leaders on how to handle COVID and how to come out of it, and I think it bodes very well for the rest of the world.
So it's cybersecurity. Sorry, I was on mute. So it's cyber. If I understand, cybersecurity, B2B, and SaaS and fintech is your the sectors that you have invested in Israel. That's good. So talking about other countries, Tushar. So what are the sector focused? Which sectors are you focused on? In and which countries do you really focus on?
Any sector which has a effect from the government, that is a very big sector because governments are able to do whatever they want in the Middle East. They have a lot of power, and after the oil prices started going down, then they put a lot of effort behind getting high technology into the region, and that those efforts are showing off. One of the education technology companies from UAE, it almost has a monopoly in the artificial intelligence area in the schools in UAE, and that company, just when it came to me a year back, it was just mind-boggling to see the numbers which this company was doing. And see, the bottom line is that Middle East and it has a unique geographical position in a good way to serve Europe, Africa, and Asian markets at the same time. And it has several countries with no corporate taxes, such as Kuwait, UAE, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia has recently come out with a vision document in which it will invest trillions of dollars to develop its economy, the non-oil part of the economy. And similarly, in the Dubai, there is no corporate tax, personal income tax, no withholding taxes, no VAT, no capital gains tax. So all these are huge benefits for any company because it results in a very healthy kind of balance sheet. And recently, the governments have brought in legislation that favored local interests. The government has repealed many of them, and progressive investment and corporate ownership laws have come up. And Saudi Vision 2030 document is, they will develop their manufacturing, technology, mining. UAE Vision 2021 talks all about a knowledge-based economy. Similarly, Egypt Vision 2030 talks about knowledge-based innovation. And just to give you an example, the government of Saudi Arabia has been developing a city called Neom. It's a massive 26,000 square kilometer city, and the city is already hosting daily flights to its airport with a goal to attract 1 million residents. And so that shows once the intention of the government in this region is there to do anything, then a lot of things start happening. And UAE has recently appointed a Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence, recognizing that AI is on track to contribute almost $100 billion to its economy by 2030. So all these things, they throw up a lot of interesting themes for investors like us to play. And apart from that, don't forget, because of all these lack of taxes and lot of healthy oil-based economy system. The purchasing power of consumers in this region is very high, and people are used to consuming and buying the highest quality of goods from globally, and this leads to a very good investment thesis around investments in consumer B2B and consumer B2C companies, and even D2C companies. And I was reading some time back, Saudi
Yeah.
Saudi sovereign fund
Yeah.
invested in SoftBank's Vision Fund. I think it was around $50 billion,
SoftBank.
and SoftBank's Vision Fund, and Mubadala, the Abu Dhabi state investment company, invested $15 billion in SoftBank's Vision Fund, and Oman invested through Oman Technology Fund. So all this shows the focus of the region towards technology, and this is showing in companies increasingly using technologies, and it is showing in the venture capital investments also in the region.
Thank you so much, Shah, for sharing all those details about all these countries. And for one thing, I know Dubai, UAE is one of the blockchain capital of the region, I would say. I think the entire crypto and blockchain community is right now in Dubai. Everybody is there and operating from there. So Dubai is all open. Thank you so much.
Right.
So Darren, which companies did we take to Silicon Valley from the Middle East? Which companies apart from Quick Software?
Yeah, I mean the situation. So we're curating companies from all over the region right now. So it's a step-by-step process. But essentially, what we're looking for is companies that have the quantum and AI. Of course, AI. I mean, think about it. There are 40 zettabytes of data on the planet today. If you took CDs and stacked them one on top of another, that would go 29 times between the Earth and the Moon, growing at 67.8% per year. So the challenge is we're in a state of infobesity. Companies from all over the region that address those kind of challenges and difficulties are going to be the ones that come on top. The second thing is quantum computing, which I talk about a lot. Quantum computers can be 100 million times faster than a supercomputer. What would take 10,000 years on a supercomputer takes 200 seconds on a quantum, to put it in perspective. So the countries that focused on those issues, I like the fact that Tushar said that there are now ministers of AI. Of course, it's critically important for all of us to be able to work together to solve these very complex problems. Look at the coronavirus. I was on one of the panels in Europe at the beginning of the coronavirus, and I'm a country boy, right? But they asked me, what's your opinion about drug discovery using artificial intelligence versus bench time? And there was a dispute. Those kind of, we shouldn't be having those. We should move forward and solve the problems. As we look forward, humanity's got a lot of difficulties that we need to overcome, and artificial intelligence, unsupervised and supervised. And by the way, compassionate AI. I write about emotion AI a lot, but having that compassion is going to be critically important, because if we have pragmatic AI, nothing good's going to happen.
Yes, so, it's all about.
So the region. So in terms of the region, Sunny, it's really important that folks all over the world, intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't. It's critically important for the region to be able to get out. It's not about having the Ferrari in the garage, that I say, in Dubai or Israel. It's a matter of getting the Ferrari out and testing it on the track and running it and tuning it. And what I mean by that is get it out to the global market, right? If you want to win, you got to go global. And as Samuel said, networks and connections are critically important. It's one of the reasons that Israel's been so successful, because of the networks and connections. But any company literally can have those networks and connections. What we talked about yesterday about the family offices, it's like a closed community. It's like the ultimate, I hate to say it, but old boys club, But once you're in, they start to talk about you and you start to meet with them. So what I suggest is that, those companies reach out. Most of the time, many of the times, the founders are technical, right? They're technologists and they're a little bit introverted, and they believe that sales and marketing are voodoo. I mean, I've heard it. But the situation is, if you can't speak, If you can't get your point across, if you don't have an online presence, you don't have the visibility, it's really hard to come to the top today, especially during the pandemic. Those companies that are out there from the Middle East need to understand that. Understand that it's not about being a regional player. It's about, in a positive sense, being part of the global community, dominating your space. So, it's a keep it simple, stupid. Get it out, get it to the market, get the kind of visibility, and do it quickly.
Yes, I think very rightly said. Israel is definitely well connected to the rest of the world. I mean, including Asia as well. So that brings me to the next question, Samuel. When you were doing business, when you were into family offices in Asia, how different it is operating in Israel as compared to Asia? Like, which countries in Asia did you operate in? A, and B, what are the challenges faced by Israeli VC right now during the pandemic?
Thank you. I think if you look at in the past few years, actually, there have been a bit of a shift. Like historically, Israel, the first fund of fund in Israel was actually the government in the 90s. Then it grew. We had the US investors came in the years 2000, took over the Israeli market of being the best fund, the best performers. 2008 with a bit of a shift where we saw Israeli trained people who had gone to study in the US, went to Booth, went to Harvard Business School, worked in in the US, in some of the leading firms, came back to Israel, and there were a new generation of general partners. There were also a new generation of partners much more connected to the rest of the world, whether it had been in the US, whether it had been in Asia. And, it's, as Gary mentioned, Israel is a country of a lot of immigrants, with an amazing immigration from Russia, 1 million people from Russia, very strong immigrants, which have been an amazing added value for the country. So I would say the nature of the DNA of the country is to be open and try to build partnership with the rest of the world. It's and that's why I think so everyone in Israel has been so excited with Abraham Accords, because it's finally, it's so close. We can finally work together and build companies together, have projects together. And I think that even to fly to India, now we can fly straight instead of having to go to Europe. So in terms of gain time, I think those are tremendous opportunities. With COVID, you see that it's only accelerated in a way, because I think the frustration sometimes when you're like a small country a bit far away was how do you go and can you be close to your customers? And all of a sudden, companies that with Zoom, they can actually sell without having to be on the ground there. So usually it's good, and I think that's something very important, and a lot of the funds in Israel have a strong emphasis on it, to take the marketing and sales, to take the CEO, send them to the US to be close to their customers. And I think that's how you know the customers, because there are some strong differences in terms of what are the skill set in each country, what are going to be the habits of our consumer, what's going to be the expectation in terms of financing. And I think the more people are in contact, whether it's going to be Zoom or at one point even meeting physically, and then now, it's 2-hour flight to go to Dubai, so it makes travel very easy. I think it's going to be just amazing stuff like opening and I think it's going to be a trend. We're going to see more and more Israeli companies opening in the UAE, getting an exchange of information, know-how. I don't, quite a few companies mentioned, what Tushar mentioned with the Ministry of AI. It's an amazing opportunity. And I think the strength of the UAE in this thing is it has a luxury of having a very long-term vision. I think that the problem of a lot of countries, when you have an election every 4 or 5 years, or when we have sometimes challenges with elections, as we may have in Israel, it's hard to build over the long term. And I think to have this partnership between deep tech, a market, and a long-term vision, I share everybody's optimism on this panel that it's going to be a tremendous growth for the whole region.
So good to know that Israeli companies and startups are looking to grow beyond boundaries into Dubai, UAE. So what about other other regions trying to access into Israel, how easy it is for them in terms of investment, in terms of collaboration, or getting into the country? Is it that smooth as well?
So it's an interesting question. Like it's historically Israel would go to US. That I would say that was always a main access. You have Israelis there. Some everybody speaks English. Very easy. In the past few years, we saw Asia and especially China being much more active, coming to Israel, buying a lot of companies. Sometimes, like it's the government had to say stop because it was buying too much of infrastructure also. And what we're starting to see is Europe also starting to invest more and more. The delegations coming, trying to understand. I believe that like seeing is believing in terms of startups. So we've actually welcomed quite a few delegations from other family offices we know, and like some corporate who want to be on the ground and see what's happening. Like just for people to realize today, in terms of part of the success of Israel startup is we have more than 320 research centers in Israel from all the major companies. Like, which means, and the paradox also, for a very long time, it's starting to change. We had the research center of Alexa for Amazon, but we didn't have Amazon as a product. So we're great at creating, we're less good at enjoying some of the innovation because we export a lot more. So I think the shift we're going to see is going to be, with exchanges, naturally US, Asia, Europe, a little bit more complicated, and people are very hopeful on the JCC.
That's good to know. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Samuel. Good to have you on the panel to know about this, get all these insights, to be honest. Thank you. Tushar, so I'd like to ask you a different question. So what challenges you faced as a VC personally, making some business during the pandemic with the region? If at all we're planning to make some collaboration in terms of partnership, in terms of investments. So where did you face any challenges? And if you did, what were those challenges and how did you try and overcome them?
So, the challenges initially, there were some landmark events which happened in the Middle East. I call them landmark events, like in, the acquisition of Maktub by Yahoo in 2009 at around $164 million. And then the acquisition of Divani by Webedia for around $30 million. And acquisition of Talabat by Rocket Internet for $170 million. These were the three landmark deals which happened in the Middle East. And just as Tiger Global, Leaf Excel of Tiger Global set the ball rolling in the Indian VC space, similarly, these deals, they set the ball rolling in Middle East space. It's not to say that a lot of exciting technology companies are not coming from the Middle East. There was a recent health tech company which is doing technology across Middle East. There is an Egyptian company in robotics which came just 2 days back, and it was exciting to see. I mean, a robotics company from Egypt having already done the PMF, and a blockchain-based healthcare company from the UAE operating across the Middle East. And so, I don't see that the challenges which were there initially, which was the lack of depth in the markets in terms of investments, in terms of presence of human resources, in terms of the presence of a whole market in which one can trade these technology products. So those things are increasingly becoming better. And there is a accelerator in the Middle East which works only for women entrepreneurs, and I was very happy to align with them and formally engage with them, because I thought a European company offering an accelerator for women entrepreneurs in the Middle East is a great idea. A lot of Indian entrepreneurs are also doing the same out there. And so, but I still feel that as of now, apart from the niche technology players like the robotic company from the Middle East, from Egypt, like this blockchain company from Israel, blockchain company from UAE, I feel that consumer-oriented plays on the B2B and B2C side and the D2C side, they will still go stronger, even if it is on the edtech side, like consumer-based edtech side, and they will be more stronger in the shorter term, in the shorter duration. And in the longer term, there is still some time for cutting edge technology, proprietary technology to come out with from these countries. There's still some time to go for that. That's my personal view.
Great insights. So we have touched upon countries like Israel, UAE, of course. What about other countries? What about other countries? We have Israel, obviously very progressive, very progressive as compared to others. UAE is very progressive, but we have other countries like Lebanon, Egypt, Sudan, Yemen, Oman. Anybody has Kuwait? Anybody are planning to shake any hands with these countries or not?
Sunny, when you read out these countries and you say the word shake, it means a shake. It sounds more like let us hop onto a flight and go and visit these places.
Yes, why not? I mean, there must be some potential in these countries. It's just that probably we haven't tapped into, or maybe the regulatory, the government is not supportive. Who knows? That's why I'm asking you. You are in the region, like Samuel is in that region, and you are working with VCs in the region. So what about these other countries?
See, I'll give you an example, Sunny. There is this Russian company which has created a monorail which is 85% cheaper to build. So, I'm telling you the role of the central authority, how important it becomes. Like, so, that Russian company, it wanted to install the test infrastructure for testing these monorails. And once it convinced the UAE government, within no time it got the approval. Within no time, access to land, access to licenses, access to everything. And that's the difference, because the authorities are very powerful. They are able to do whatever they want. And of late, since a decade or so, the governments are very progressive in terms of technology. So that's the real opportunity. And Israel, I don't need to talk much about Israel. They are the leader in a number of things, and India and Israel have wonderful relations, just as Israel has beautiful relations now with UAE and Bahrain. So, so in terms of technology, also, a lot of companies come to me. They have partnerships with Israeli companies, and so the technology is amazing and very robust. And if it comes from Israel, it has a made in Israel tag to it, which means a lot.
I know. Sure, I'm sure. Thank you for sharing that. I think, yeah, Russian companies in Dubai, I've seen a lot. Because back in the days, good old days in 2000, prior to 2020, 2019 and before, many companies in Dubai, especially for investment collaborations, many Russian companies I've seen, startups as well. So yeah, you're totally right. And obviously, if the government is supportive and progressive, then that's it. That's how we do business. Okay, that's fine. But what about other countries? How easy or difficult it is? Or have you, Samuel, living in Israel? Have you tried to, go a little, just cross the border and try shaking hands with these countries, neighboring countries, or no, you didn't think, no, it was a very bad idea or something?
No, actually, I was in Dubai like a year and a half ago. So I was invited at a family office conference. So like before it was the Arab Court and everything. And it was amazing because like you realize that like, first of all, people were very welcoming. So some people were like, how are you going to go at the dual citizenship? So that's why it was accepted, because the calls were not even at the tables then. And you realize that like the synergies and the culture, which is actually much closer. So like it's to Dubai was for us much easier of access. And I think there's a question of like in every accord, every peace process, everything. It's a bit like a marriage. So you need to learn. There's a dating period, there's an engagement, and then you need to understand what are the expectations on both sides. Otherwise, it's creating communication. So I think, and if you look at the UAE, it's a very cosmopolitan place. So people are coming from everywhere. The population it's 25%, I believe, Indians. So you have like, so it's a very mix of like talent, culture, and it's an amazing place to do business. I think it's going to be amazing. And if you take this openness and this very tolerant place with also like Israel having access to the deep technologies, and I think it's going to create opportunities. And as Gary said before, like it's about network. Like when people come to Israel, and I think it's a question of time, and we've had the question often with European investors, that look, we like fun, it's great, but what we want to do is invest directly into companies. And we tell them, great, just be aware that like good companies in Israel, you need to be able to give a check within 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks, but at the time it takes just to go to a meeting. And well, a good company in Israel has a strong team and is able to raise quickly. So you really have to be connected to the ecosystem, know what's happened. And we have some investors who said, like, look, the fund of fund for us is just to have access to the information. And when there's an opportunity in smart mobility, in agri-tech, we want to be available and have access to the company. And I think access is very difficult, like it's, and you need strong partners. Like if tomorrow we wanted to have connection with in India, we don't have the knowledge. And I think it's very pretentious in a way to think that you can build your own network like this. So you need to have someone local, like to sharpen the market very well. It makes a lot of sense for companies to try to go and find the right partner to be able to develop the relationship, instead of like trying to do everything on their own. I think it's not as efficient, and I think there's a lot of risk on both sides. So from like investor perspective and from company's perspective.
Yes, always the local representative brings a lot of difference. I've heard from Gary as well. He's trying to close some deals with the Indian partner to do the due diligence. I think it's very important. So thank you so much. I think Gary had to drop off for some family reasons today. So let's just wrap up the show quickly. And this is the first time we are discussing Middle East in terms of investments in startup ecosystem. So the more we go and cover this topic, we're going to probably focus on few countries within the region and try and focus even more on the sectors and the regulatory framework and how to really collaborate. How can, obviously, as you said, a lot of Indians in Dubai even agree. But beyond that, there are other countries, how to like, sort of shake hands or just tap into the maybe a talent, maybe an investor, or maybe a startup. There are obviously startups in every country, and they're building something that is useful, right? We just don't know. Probably they don't have that access to go global beyond their country boundaries. So yeah, we can probably explore that in a couple of episodes of VCTV on the Middle East panel. Let's take some closing remarks before we wrap up the show. Tushar, over to you. What are your closing remarks before we wrap up the show?
So my closing remarks are that almost 30 to 35% of the business which we get is actually from the Middle East, specifically from UAE and the neighboring countries. And it's very exciting to see the companies which are coming from there. We have access to 600 plus global investors, many of them wanting to invest in companies out of the Middle East. And in fact, a few of my clients, I would like to speak to Samuel after this and request him to have a look at those clients from Israel. And always happy to look at growth in the region, and also excited to see the changes happening and look at it very positively. So thanks a lot, Sunny, for the show today, and thanks to Samuel as well.
Thank you, Tushar, and I'm glad that you could probably make connection with Samuel on VCTV, and that's the whole idea about VCTV. Samuel, if you want to explore India as a market, Tushar is always there. I mean, India, Southeast Asia, if you wish to. So
Thank
let's
you,
take some.
Tushar.
Thanks, Abel.
So
Thank
let's,
you, son. Yeah.
yeah.
Closing remarks, I'm assuming.
Yes, please.
So thank you very much for the invitation, the opportunity to meet Tushar, Gary, and to exchange a bit on our vision of what's happening in the region. I think it's it goes back to what you're building with VCTV. It's a community of people who can exchange ideas, have local presence, and that's how I think the best way to be able to invest and create bridges and add value into the region, into the ecosystem as a whole. I think talent is everywhere. It's I think it's everyone has their own specificities, and I think that's how you build networks and what the differences and how to build by taking all those of talent, and that's how you maximize the chain of value for everyone. So we're very excited to be in the ecosystem and be able now to go to the UAE easily, to go to Asia, to India also. And in terms of technology, I think Israel, based on what we're saying, is going to continue, like cybersecurity, AI, agri-tech, medical, digital health. It's going to remain, I think, one of the leaders in the region, and just going to be able to do partnerships, develop. So really looking forward to working with a lot of the people who are going to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Thank you, Tushar, for sharing your insights today on the Middle East investment and startup ecosystem. And I am back tomorrow on another episode of VCTV with probably speakers that you might be on my panel. I don't know. I have to check. But yeah, but love to have you back, Samuel, representing the Israeli sort of investment ecosystem. We would love to know more about Israel and the surrounding countries in the Middle East as well. And Tushar, as always, very good, very, very good crispy points always coming from you, and love to have you back on the show as well. So yeah, till then, please stay safe and let's stay connected and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.